Now we are going to look at the important questions from Indian anthropology and the tribal part. For those who have already been part of our crash course and test series, I have covered all these things for you there, and we have done the contemporary topics also. Who are not part of the course can try to go through these questions, and if you feel that you cannot do it by yourself, then you can quickly enroll in the course and try to finish it at 2x speed so that you can cover majority of the topics. So how the demographic trend is changing. So here you need to observe it is asked in interconnection with unit 11. They can ask you demographic trend of women, how the demographic profile of women is changing in India. Write a short note on the concept of Indianness. How do anthropologists approach this contested idea? Last year digitization question has been asked. However, still it becomes very much important because you notice the impact to be too huge. Discuss the changing agrarian class structure in India due to green revolution or due to modernization, globalization. They can add any factor and they'll ask you how it is changing. Hello everyone, welcome to Ace with Ease IAS. Myself Shivateja, faculty for anthropology. So we have seen the important questions from socio-cultural, physical and archaeology. Now we are going to look at the important questions from Indian anthropology and the tribal part. So who didn't watch the previous ones? If you are looking for it, you can see the playlist section there, it is available. And one more important thing I would like to see, many of the students are messaging that they are not able to cover the syllabus entirely, what they can do at this point of time. See, for those who have already been part of our crash course and test series, I have covered all these things for you there, and we have done the contemporary topics also. We have seen the critical examination of things. So most of your job is done. So you don't need to worry. And someone who is not part of the course, and if you're thinking to do it, so those who are not part of the course can try to go through these questions, and if you feel that you cannot do it by yourself, then you can quickly enroll in the course and try to finish it at 2x speed so that you can cover majority of the topics. So if you can do it by self, then please don't do, and try to write at least 50% of the questions here so that you can attain good score and don't face the problem with the presentation under time pressure. So coming to important topics in unit 2 in Indian anthropology, so they will be asking you regarding the demographic trends. Okay, demographic trends. So they can ask you impact on demographic profile of India, impact on demographic profile of India due to various factors. So how the demographic trend is changing. So here you need to observe it is asked in interconnection. It is asked in interconnection with unit 11. So whenever you write this topic, try to keep in mind that you have to interlink with unit 11 demographic theories. And second important thing, I told you, right, impact on demographic profile of India due to various factors. So one, they can ask you demographic trend of women. Okay, so how the demographic profile of women is changing in India. So that is another important topic that you have to focus. Okay, so this is in unit 2, and coming to unit 3. In unit 3, so you have 3.1. In 3.1, if you look at their basic topics, Varna, Purushartha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So these are the basic things. I think everybody does it. And when it comes to 3.2, so it is regarding caste. So here you have to little brainstorm and practice. So first is Varna and Jati. Okay, you have Varna and Jati. To what extent do they represent the reality on ground? So first you need to understand Varna and Jati. So they'll ask discuss the Varna and Jati models and to what extent they represent the caste system on the ground reality, or it operates on the ground. So that is one possible question, Varna and Jati models. Next, so if you talk about caste, the judgmony system becomes very important. The judgmony system and its decline in the rural India. So, what do you understand by the judgmony system and its decline? So, this is another important question that is possible from this area. And if you see 3.3, see, two important people from paper two, always one or the other keeps coming is LP Vidyarthi and MN Srinivas. So the LP Vidyarthi's sacred complex concept is important. However, along with LP Vidyarthi's sacred complex, you need to understand the critical analysis of sacred complex concept and the NMS complex concept. So in both the cases, try to do the critical analysis, try to see the other side of it, what other scholars have talked about it, what are the flaws in the method of study. Okay, and in sacred complex, you also have BN Saraswati and Makanja study. So what they have mentioned about it. Okay, so here these are the possible things. And if you look at 3.4, in 3.4, you have impact of Buddhism and Jainism on Indian society. So these are two important things. So they can ask impact of Buddhism and Jainism on Indian social structure. Again, try to bring in the scholarly views to write this answer. Don't write it generic. There are many people who have worked upon it and they have given their views, especially with respect to anthropology. So certain papers are published and try to quote those scholars or the scholarly views when you write this answer. Don't write it too generic. If you have to score good, to write an impact of Buddhism and Jainism on Indian society or Indian social structure, use those scholarly views. So that will help you fetch an additional marks in this area. And coming to LP Vidyarthi's sacred complex or NMS complex, always try to give the alternative view about it and at the same time give the latest examples of it. That will help you get an additional mark. Okay, so now coming to unit 4. So tracing the emergence of anthropology in India. Okay, so now there might be a question that trace the emergence of anthropology in India. So instead of asking directly, they can ask trace the emergence of various branches of anthropology. So this can be a little tweaked one. So then you have to be prepared how different branches of anthropology has evolved. So this is with respect to unit 4. And the other thing is that contribution of anthropology to understand Indian rural and tribal societies. Okay, so contribution of anthropology to understand rural and tribal societies. Then you have contribution of contribution of British and American anthropology to Indian anthropology. Sorry, British and American anthropologists to Indian anthropology. So these are the general simple questions that keep coming regularly. But along with this, we need to understand one important thing, that is concept of Indianness. Concept of Indianness. And to what extent the anthropologists of India agree with this contested topic. Okay, so write a short note on the concept of Indianness and how do anthropologists approach this? How do anthropologists approach this contested idea? So these are the general questions, and other will be specifically on the scholars. Okay, so I told you MN Srinivas and LP Vidyarthi are two important people. MN Srinivas, you can add it in fifth unit or fourth unit. So his concept of Sanskritization and Westernization, and Yogendra Singh, modernization. These three things are very important every year. So here we don't need to focus on important one because MN Srinivas and LP Vidyarthi are always important. So don't skip those things. Westernization, Sanskritization, and modernization. Yogendra Singh modernization concept is important. Okay, and then we have the tribe caste continuum concept. So this is also an important one. So critically evaluate its relevance in understanding, okay, the social mobility. So critical evaluation in understanding social mobility. So tribe caste continuum you might have studied, but we don't study from the critical perspective. We don't understand it critically. So UPSC, if it wants to make the question paper little tweaked, so these are the things that you are going to notice. Okay, so tribe caste continuum is another important topic, and it's not the direct one, but you have to understand its critical evaluation. Then from unit 5, if you go to unit 5, importance of village studies or significance of village studies. Okay, impact of Panchayati Raj and social media on villages. Panchayat Raj institutions and social media on villages. Because you can notice that last year digitization question has been asked. However, still it becomes very much important because you notice the impact to be too huge. Okay, and you also notice the changing agrarian class structure in India since independence. So they can also ask in a different way. Okay, so discuss the changing agrarian class structure in India due to green revolution or due to modernization, globalization. They can add any factor and they'll ask you how it is changing. So here you need to remember the important scholars A.R. Desai, and you have Dangire, and you also have Sharma and many other people. Okay, you have S.S. Jodka. So these people talk about how the things have changed over a period of time due to impact of green revolution or globalization and the bringing up of modernization to Indian society. Okay, so these are the possible things from unit 5. And if you notice in 5.2 you have the impact of various religions. Okay, again you notice that the questions of impact of Islam on Indian culture and impact of Christianity on Indian culture. So these things try to keep in mind and try to cover them. So next we are moving to tribal anthropology, unit 6. So whenever you write answers in tribal anthropology, you have to ensure the answer is organic and there is an emotional flow in the answer. Do not dump the points and don't write too generic. Try to use the scholarly views with respective topics. Okay, so that will help you fetch an additional marks. Try to use examples, try to use case studies, but do not overdo them. Just use these to substantiate and try to give views, different views or perspectives based on the works of different scholars. So these should only be for substantiation. These are not going to be the complete answer. They are not the answers. They are just going to be substantiation. So writing four examples or five examples does not make any sense. Only thing is that you should write, explain things using the examples and studies. So when it comes to sixth unit, first they'll ask critically examine the problems of tribes. So this problem can be land alienation, the problem can be indebtedness, the problem can be related to the health issues. And they'll be asking what are the measures. See, critically examine the problems of tribes and what are the measures that have been taken and how effective are they on the ground. Okay, so this can be one possible question. And in similar way, they'll ask constitutional safeguards for SC, ST and OBC, SC, ST and OBC, and how effective are they in implementation and overcoming the problems of SC, ST, OBC. And in sixth unit, one more possible question is impact of industrialization, urbanization and globalization, okay, on the tribes and displacement. So urbanization, industrialization and displacement, impact of these things on the tribal communities and their cultural identity. So they'll be asking you to discuss using suitable case studies. So in that case, you have to know the impact of these things. So impact of industrialization, urbanization and displacement and its impact on the tribes, and they'll ask you to use certain studies to explain. So that's why you should be clear with some of the examples and case studies from these units. And coming to seventh unit, you will be noticing Forest Rights Act and the concept of assimilation, isolation, and integration. So the relevance of tribal punching in today's context. So these are the things that can be questioned, and they'll be asking you regarding Forest Rights Act, tribal subplan, okay, and they'll also ask you recent schemes. Okay. And one more possible question is evolution of tribal policies. So just be aware on this. And in seventh unit, so role of NGOs in tribal development, the role of NGOs in tribal development, and what are their limitations. So simply one way they can ask is critically examine the role of NGOs in tribal development, or they can ask how effective are NGOs in the implementation of the government schemes. So, or they can ask women related NGOs or children related NGOs. So, just try to have some examples and one or two studies related to it so that you can comfortably manage to write an academic answer and relevant answer rather than writing a general studies one. So this is another possible question. Okay, and you can also expect a question on ethnographic profiles of different tribes. So just when you read, so try to go through the features of tribes, okay, so of different areas. Okay, so here the tribes practice transhumance, they go for pastoralism in the Himalayan region. Okay, and how are the tribes in the northeast, how are they in the west and the south and the central. So just get to know their economic features, political features, religious features broadly. So sometimes even if you cannot know the ethnographic profile of the tribe in detail, still you will be able to manage. So how to write an answer about a particular tribe? So like you have to talk about their geographical distribution, economic activity, political organization, religious organization, how is it present, and how were they present in the past. So what was their past and what happened to them in the present. Did this change? Did they get better or they got worse? So these things you have to talk. So some important ones are Santals, Gons. Okay, you can also see Bills and Kasis. So Bills, it's okay, but Kasis and Kasas. So you notice that recently fraternal polyandry has been in news. So it becomes important, but it's impossible to know all the tribes in detail. So that's why know the characteristic features. And I have posted one PDF in the group also regarding different tribes, their practices regarding the economic organization and how it is changing and the respective scholarly work on it. So just try to go through that document. So that will help you to get an idea of most of the tribes. Okay, then you notice that there is ethnic movements and political movements, and these days they are very much in rise. So anthropological understanding of ethnic and political movements is other possible question from tribal part. Anthropological understanding of ethnic movements and political movements. Okay, this is another important question. And if you have seen in paper one itself, I asked you to go through the difference between law and custom, the difference between them, and how it is getting changed, how it is getting impacted because of the formal legal system, law and custom in tribal societies or the simple societies, and how it is getting impacted because of formal legal system. Okay, and then you have impact of different religions on tribals. So different religions, and I have made a video also, Christianity, Jainism and Buddhism, Hinduism on tribes. So what is the impact? And then you also have the role of anthropology in development. Role of anthropology in development. Critically examine the concepts of critically examine the concepts of regionalism, communalism, okay, and ethnicity. So critically examine the concept of regionalism and communalism and ethnicity from an anthropological perspective. From an anthropological perspective. Okay, so these are the possible questions, and there are some more questions that I have mentioned in the PDF. You can go through the PDF and try to answer at least 50% of the questions in practice, at least 50. If you can do all of them, then well and good, but at least 50%, because you can see that there is rise of ethno-nationalism. So you can see the rise of ethno-nationalism. The questions can be asked very differently. So in that case, if you don't practice in the exam hall, it gets difficult. So they can ask, what is ethno-nationalism? Discuss in reference to insurgency movements of Nagaland and Mizoram, or Nagaland or Mizoram, or they can give any other area. So they'll ask, what is ethno-nationalism, and discuss in reference to it. Discuss in reference to Nagaland, Mizoram, or they can ask even Manipur also. So it can be anything. And here you can also add the other provisions, PISA plus the fifth and sixth schedule. So this is other important one. And you have the concept of pseudo tribalism. So these are very simple ones. I expect everybody would have done it. So pseudo tribalism. Okay, and PVTGs. So see, PVTGs is very important topic. At any cost, you have to do it, and mostly these are the possible ones. And I would suggest that first you finish them. Don't spot on study. Use this as a guideline for revision and try to finish them first. Once you're done with this, you can go to the other topics, because these I feel to be more prior things. Okay, and see, now when you're writing role of anthropology in development, sometimes they can also ask impact of panchayati raj institutions. Okay, so when we come to PISA, so here the question can be in different way. They can ask impact of PRIs on tribal legal systems or tribal political organization, right? So they can ask about their economic organization, political organization, how is it changing, what are the policies. So if you go in an order, I think you'll be able to tackle the questions better. So I think if you can do this, then you're good to go for the exam. Okay, so, and if you want to know more about the individual scholars, so important individual scholars, you can check on Telegram channel. So in my Telegram channel, I have posted the schedule. So there I have mentioned different anthropologists, so whom you should cover. So at least from now, if you can cover 3 per day, then also you'll be able to cover all the important ones. So this is with respect to important questions and the top 100 questions for anthropology, and we have done our best to cover the things widely in terms of questions. At the same time, try to convert the theme into question, because normally we know the themes, from here it comes, but unless and until you know it in question format, you don't think what is the appropriate introduction, body structure, and the conclusion. So that becomes very important, and you have to save a lot of time over there. So through these At least somebody who did not practice so far, if they can do this and if they can practice well and go to the exam hall, they'll be able to decently handle the paper, be it any kind. So once again, I wish you very all the best for your mains examination. Try to be calm, composed. So whatever you have done so far, try to revise them regularly. And if you haven't done practice, even 10 to 15 days of practice can help you get better a lot. Okay, so it will help you become better. Even for 15 days also, try to write 4 or 5 questions every day. And if somebody who hasn't done their preparation well, what you can do is pick 10 to 15 questions every day, complete them within 10 days. You'll cover all the questions. And if you cover 10 questions today, very next morning, try to revise all of them. So, like this, for 150 to 200 questions, if you can revise properly, I think most of the syllabus will be covered there and you can handle the paper better. So, once again, very all the best to those giving mains and see you in the next class. Thank you.